There's a tulip tree. It might be 28 inches, 30 inches DBH. And it's every bit of 75, 80 feet tall.
I wanted to discuss with you today proper pruning. We have a large tulip tree behind me. I was up there in the bucket truck yesterday. I pruned this entire tree. Every branch in this tree has been tipped back slightly. All cuts made with a handsaw, all small cuts. You can take a sample look in the brush pile. Here's a piece of deadwood, but these are all the live cuts here. And there's nothing here much more than this is the biggest one here, maybe 1.5 inches. Most of these cuts are 1 inch, 1.5 inches. Some cuts are 2 inches. That's the way the entire canopy was pruned. Going out into each branch tip, carefully making cuts with the handsaw, throwing the pieces down. That's much different kind of pruning than someone going up into the center of this tree, making a bunch of big cuts, taking 3, 4 inch, 5 inch cuts, making those, leaving large wounds on the trunk of the tree. Those type of cuts will never be able to compartmentalize off the decay. That decay eventually is going to move through the trunk of the tree, destabilize the entire trunk of the tree, and then the tree's basically a hazard. It's going to have to be removed. So it's much easier to go up and make a few cuts in the bottom or middle of the tree than it is to reach out on each branch tip. The customer was concerned about safety, about the safety of this tree. It's standing out by itself. It's got no competition. It's just reaching for the sun, getting very big. Eventually it could become too big to hold itself up. So by going out to the branch tips, we're taking off weight where the leverage counts. You take a few pounds off out on those branch tips, it's going to be much better as far as stress reduction on the structure of the tree than taking more weight off closer in. And so we've reduced the sail, we've taken off weight at the where it's best leveraged to reduce stress on the tree, and importantly for the tree, we've made small cuts, all small cuts on the tree, leaving small wounds which will easily compartmentalize, which a tree has no problem in sealing off decay, and those wounds are made on the branch tips where that decay has no chance of that decay moving into the main trunk. So we're going to show you some of those cuts from the ground here. Now you can see some cuts are made there. And there. And all up through that upper canopy. An untrained company can go up in this tree and make large cuts on the trunk, which will eventually cause decay to move into the trunk of the tree. Once those cuts are made, anything over 4 or 5 inches in poorly compartmentalizing trees will eventually rot through and create the whole center column of decay in a tree, destabilizing the tree, making it a hazard. And we can see what happened last year or the year before. Somebody came in here and took off the lower limbs on this tree. Instead of going out and pruning the branch tips, they just made large cuts, 4, 5, 6 inch cuts right on the trunk of the tree. And a number of them. One there, and you can see these two cuts are made right across from each other. It's gonna compound the decay. Decay is gonna join in there and then eventually create a real hazard here. Improper pruning. You might look at that cut and say that's a good cut, but whether or not it was cut at a proper target cut or not, there's no way a 6 inch cut on a tulip tree is going to compartmentalize. Over the years, it may take some time, but it's going to destabilize this entire tree. Whoever made those cuts condemned this tree to an early death. To do proper pruning in many situations, the best thing is to go out to the branch tips and make small cuts on the branch tips that the tree can easily compartmentalize. The problem though is that this requires a lot of athleticism, a lot of talent to be able to reach those branch tips or the right equipment. I was up and down in a 75-foot bucket truck in about an hour yesterday, just making small cuts throughout the entire canopy. Every branch on that tree was pruned. Whatever little bit of decay is going to be involved in those cuts, it's going to be far away from the main trunk of the tree. It's that main trunk of the tree we're trying to protect. Once that becomes structurally unstable, now the tree becomes a hazard and must be removed. So this tulip tree, I thought it was a good example to show you. It's out in the kind of an open area so we can get the camera on it and you can see the structure of the tree and the canopy of the tree and how it's been pruned. All right, here we are.
There's the tulip tree. I wanted to come back when the leaves were off to show you the small cuts on these branch tips that were made here throughout the entire canopy. You can get a better sense of them now that the leaves are off. So no large wounds at all were made on the trunk. Took a good bit of sail out, took weight off the branch tips, and that will keep the tree from falling apart when the wind blows, if the snow or the ice comes. And it's good pruning. The tree has no problem handling that. Didn't lose too much of its green leafy material, so it can produce plenty of food and energy for itself. And yet it's much safer. See all those small cuts on the branch tips made throughout the upper canopy. Now that would have taken quite a feat of athleticism for a climber to go out there and reach out and make those cuts on those branch tips. But if you don't have a 75-foot bucket truck, you can't do it on a tree like that. It's not even that big a tree. A 55-footer is not going to make it. And of course, a 75-foot bucket truck is very expensive. So not too many guys have them. It's the right tool for pruning that tree.
So oftentimes, you know, as I drive around, I look at other tree guys' work, I see all the improper pruning that gets done, all these elevating trees and making large cuts on the trunk. And I've talked to these guys. They don't realize that they're hitting these trees too hard. They don't understand what the long-term effects of that are. And it's just a lack of general knowledge in the industry. And there's only a very few companies out there that I can say, these guys for sure, if they're pruning your tree, are going to do a good job. And here's the difference is a nice, beautifully thinned out canopy done properly by an arborist that has that philosophy of making small cuts out on the branch tips versus several large cuts made on the trunk of the tree. And on the proposal, it's going to say prune large tulip. When it comes to pruning trees, it's not apples to apples. You have to really know what's the contractor's his qualifications and the way he prunes trees in order to protect and preserve your trees. So I hope that you've learned something. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you catch another video sometime soon.